Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Shaji Damdaran. I'm the Technical Support and Training Specialist at ADF, and I'm going to be talking to you today about satisfying the Landeck ruling with ADF Pro. So the agenda for today, I'm going to be covering the Landeck ruling, just give you a brief introduction about the Landeck case and the subsequent ruling. We're going to look at the impact of prosecutions and how that ruling affects prosecutions, the effects that it has on digital forensic investigations, how we can comply with the Landeck ruling using ADF Pro, and there'll be a short demonstration towards the end of the presentation, and then I'll conclude with forthcoming enhancements in ADF Pro version 6.3. Just some housekeeping, and just to let you all know, this webinar is being recorded. There will be a section in the webinar for you to submit your questions. It's in the top corner of the screen there, where you can submit your questions. It's a question box there with a question mark in it, and you can submit your questions there. I'll get to those questions at the end of the session. And there will be a poll throughout the presentation at various points which you can take part in. So it is an interactive session, and we also have a survey with questions at the end of it as well. So let's start talking about the Landeck ruling. Before we do, we've just got a poll there. If you could just kindly fill that in, that'd be great. Thank you very much. So the Landeck ruling, the case itself is a very interesting case, and it centres on a German citizen who was stopped by Austrian customs officers in February 2021, who had stopped the citizen in relation to a drug-related investigation. The individual was found in possession of a small amount of cannabis, 85 grams, which in Austria is a punishable but with a sentence of up to 1 year's imprisonment. So a relatively minor offence. During the course of that interaction with authorities, the individual's mobile phone was seized, and the authorities made several attempts to access the data on that device. Having been unsuccessful, that device was then transferred to headquarters, and further attempts were made to access the data on that device. The case eventually went through the judicial system, and at this point, the individual concerned found out that police had tried to access personal data on his mobile phone, and he felt that this was an unlawful and an invasion of his privacy. So he mounted an appeal, and in the course of that case, he found that there was no authorization by the authorities to search that device, and there was no record of the data, and the subsequent attempts to access that data were recorded. So the individual concerned made an appeal, mounted an appeal, challenging the seizure of his mobile phone. The case went to the Court of Justice for the European Union. They heard all the evidence and looked at the case, and they came to a number of conclusions. And the first was that access to that personal data on digital devices constitutes a serious invasion of one's privacy and data protection. And both of these points are covered under Articles 7 and 8 of the EU Charter. So that's a right to a private life, and also the right to have your personal data protected. They also found that there was no independent oversight in terms of authorizing accessing that data. In other words, the police were not in a position to self-authorize and to access that data. So there needed to be that independent oversight. They also found that personal data can be accessed for all criminal investigations, but there needed to be that satisfaction of meeting proportionality tests. And lastly, that law enforcement agencies must inform the data subject of the grounds of collecting that personal data. So there's a number of points that the courts found in relation to this particular case. So let's look at the impact on prosecutions. Firstly, the impact is around law enforcement agencies having access to those devices, and that there need to be that prior independent authorization required before that personal data is accessed. There are also privacy, data protection, and proportionality considerations that we need to bear in mind. The right to respect EU privacy and data protection requirements. As I said in the previous slide, that's going to be enshrined in the EU law. We also need to consider proportionality and why we are going to access that information. What are we seeking to achieve in accessing that information? There is the impact on prosecutions in terms of the admissibility of the evidence. So if we access the data on that particular device and it was unlawfully accessed, then there's the potential there for that case to be thrown out when it goes through the court system and challenged. There's also going to be the effect on procedural changes. In this instance, there's going to be more procedures to follow. So new procedures to follow in terms of obtaining those warrants, also documenting the attempts to access that data, but also notifying the individuals, the data subjects, where appropriate. On the right-hand side, there's a number of cases there that I've just highlighted which focus on this point. So the first case there in the top right corner concerns Dutch police who had stopped an individual at Schiphol Airport, and they carried out a limited search of that individual's smartphone. The individual concerned felt that this was an invasion of his privacy, appealed against it, and it went through the appeal courts, and the courts found in favour of the police because they had done those limited searches on that person's device in relation to a drugs investigation. The middle case there is in relation to the UK. While not directly impacted by the Landeck ruling, it's just another case to highlight the importance of seizing data and acquiring data on mobile phones. So this was a case concerning the Home Office here in the UK, where there was a blanket policy in place to capture the data from devices of individuals who had illegally crossed the channel and arrived in the UK. Several of these individuals took the case through the appeal courts, and it was found that it was a serious invasion of privacy in relation to accessing all of the data on their phones. And finally, you've got that case at the bottom there, which relates to a Slovak businessman who was a suspect in a killing of a journalist. This individual and their mobile phones were seized by Slovak authorities who sought assistance from Europol. All of the data on these devices was downloaded, and whilst no information was found in relation to the actual killing of the journalist, the individual concerned took the case through the appeal courts, and it was subsequently found in favour of him, and that it was a serious invasion of his privacy and right to a private life. And he was awarded several thousands of euros in damages. Let's look at the effects of this on digital investigations. Before we do that, I believe we have another poll. So let's look at the effects on digital investigations. So what does this actually mean for digital investigations? So when we're talking about digital devices and the data that's on these digital devices, the searches in themselves can be seen as quite intrusive, very intrusive, in fact. There's a lot of personal and sensitive data on these devices. So if I think about my own personal phone, I've got a lot of data on there that's in relation to me. I've got health data. I've got data relating to family and life events that I store in my calendar. So there's a lot of information there, and a lot of it is personal and sensitive. And that leads on to the point about the risk of collateral intrusion and how do we mitigate against that. There is the new default now with this Landeck ruling, and I appreciate it's EU-centric, but there is this new default position of applying for prior authorization from an independent body. And that's going to be through a court or an independent authority. We need to also bear in mind applying those principle of proportionality tests. So what are we looking for in the data? Why do we need access to this data? It means that we need to take further steps before we even access that data. So that's applying for the warrants and completing that paperwork. When we're talking about proportionality, what we're doing is we're focusing on and acquiring relevant data that's proportionate to the offence that we're investigating. We need to be mindful of doing that targeted data collection as well. So not having that mindset where we're gathering everything, but we're being very focused and targeted in our collection of data. And that leads on to the point about it not being a fishing expedition. So we're not just gathering everything just in case. What all of this means is that we're going to have tailored digital forensic strategies, and that's going to be vary by case and offence by offence. We know that doing digital investigations, documentation and justification are critical. They're absolutely vital. It's going to be necessary. We've already talked about the proportionality aspects of it and the need to obtain prior authorization before we've even accessed the data. And all of this just seeks to ensure that we comply with those processes, because we know that when we go through the judicial process and present that evidence at court, one of the things that is scrutinised is, have we followed those procedures and processes? And all of this is going to mean that we ensure that we revise and amend our digital forensic standard operating procedures. Because the risk of not doing these things and being non-compliant is that the evidence that we put before the courts is going to be challenged or even excluded. There's the potential for cases to be thrown out. So all of these considerations are things that we must bear in mind when we're doing our digital investigations. So we've looked at that from a prosecution point of view, but what about evidence from victims and witnesses? There are going to be concerns from individuals who are the victims or witnesses to a crime about reporting crimes, because they're worried about their personal and private data being accessed on devices that they may have captured evidence on. And again, this leads on to the point about mitigating the risks. How do we minimize those risks of collateral intrusion and privacy? If we take into account and mitigate those risks, what we can do is we can build confidence and ensure that we're engaging with members of the public, and there will be a lot more forthcoming in providing evidence of crimes. And that leads on to having a much more increased likelihood of successful outcomes. Firstly, in terms of safeguarding victims, but also in prosecuting offenders and bringing them through the judicial process and before the courts. So how can ADF Pro help? We just have another poll here. Brilliant. Before we talk about how we can comply with the ADF with the ruling with ADF Pro, for anybody who's not familiar with ADF Pro, I think it would be just nice just to give an introduction about the tool itself. So ADF Pro is our flagship tool, and it enables you to triage computers, digital media, and mobile devices. We can run it in a number of different modes. So if you've got your forensic machine, you can have it installed on your desktop, and you can run it in live and boot mode as well using collection key. We've got some additional capabilities around RAM extraction and drive imaging as well, and it's all done in a forensically sound manner. In terms of mobile devices, we can do that advanced logical acquisition on iOS and Android devices. And we've also got a fantastic capability around screen capture, and we can also optically character recognize the text that we've captured in our screen captures. How are we going to satisfy the Landeck ruling with ADF Pro? Well, within the tool, we've got search profiles, and I'll talk a bit more about this in the slides that follow. We've also got captures that we can utilize. And with our search profiles and captures, what we can do is do that and perform that targeted data collection. What that means is that we can then we will be complying with the Landeck ruling. And our search profiles and captures also give users that greater control and flexibility. So let's see in a bit more detail about search profiles and the particular captures that we use. So as I said in that slide previously, the key is going to be our search profiles. And our search profiles are essentially a combination of artifact and file captures. And I'll talk more about this in the next few slides. What our search profiles allow us to do is to modify these search profiles in order to meet our investigational requirements. They can be customized and tailored by users, and they can also be shared and imported. When we're looking at the composition of a search profile, as I said, it consists of artifact captures and file captures. So we'll talk about artifact captures first. So your artifact captures are going to encompass a number of different captures. It will include details about applications, communications platforms, device data, information about the device itself. We know that mobile devices contain geolocation data, so we're going to have that data there as well. And we're going to have some web browsing history as well that we can capture. When we talk about artifact captures, we are recovering those specific records and information. And you can see there a screenshot on the left-hand side there of a number of different artifact captures. We look at the one around USB history. we've got 15 records there that relate to Microsoft Windows operating system that we have captured details for. And these artifact captures cannot be edited or created by users. So they're provided by default in the tool itself. We've also got file captures. And with file captures, we can do that cut tailoring and customization. So we can look at specific files and file properties. We can look at keywords and we can generate keyword lists. We can import hashes and hash values to search against. And we can also compare files using visual similarities. In terms of file captures, we've got that ability to recover files that match certain criteria. So as I said in the previous slide, we can specify the particular file properties. So if you're interested in looking for a particular file type, so of an image, and you are interested in just acquiring JPEG images, then we can specify that. We can include keywords. So if you have a keyword list, we can import that using the keyword import list function. And you can also generate your own keyword list as well. In relation to keywords, we've also got a regular expression keyword builder within the tool that you can utilize. And we can also match against hash values as well. And all of this is supplied with the program, and it can be tailored by the user. What this means is that with our captures, we can do that targeted data collection. It's going to be much more laser focused and very specific in what we're looking for. On the right-hand side there, you can see a capture within a search profile, and we've got a number of different captures within there where we're looking for specific things. It means that we've got that level of granularity in terms of our searching and our search capability. And what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? It means that we're going to be legally compliant when we're doing those scans of devices. We're only looking for the information that's relevant to our investigation, so relevant data. And that follows on, naturally, that we are balancing those privacy concerns against the investigational need. So when we're putting it all together, we've got our search profile. It's going to consist of some artifact captures that are supplied as default with the tool, but also some file captures that we can tailor and customize. So what do the results look like? So here we've got a screenshot of some of the results of that, running a tailored and targeted data collection. In the top right corner, you can see there we've got 215 records out of a possible 6,437. So we've really refined that data collection, and we're focusing only on the data that matters to our investigation. What I'm going to do now is run a demonstration. Oh, we've just got a poll up on the screen. Just wait for that to finish. So I'm in ADF Pro now, and this is our home screen. And what I'm going to do is just go into the scan setup and key management, and we'll have a look at the search profile that I've created. So I'm going to go into manage search profiles, and I've created this K9 search profile, and we'll have a look at that. So within our K9 search profile, we've got a number of different captures there within the capture group section on the left-hand side. So if I look within the child exploitation section, we've got the keywords in file names that are specific to child exploitation. So there's that's a keyword list there that's built into the tool that we're going to utilize in our capture. We've got within the device data section, I've also got some information about the operating system information and USB history checked. In the K9 specific capture group, so this is a group that I've created, I've got some hashes in there that are specific to my case that I would like to search against. So if we have a look within the K9 hashes, you can see there's 413 hash values that I've imported into this specific capture group. Have a look within the K9 keywords capture group. Again, this is a capture group a capture that I've created, consisting of keywords that are going to be specific to my case. And you can see there a number of different keywords that I'm bringing into the case that I'm going to be searching against. So what does that look like? So we'll have a look at some scan results now. I'm just going to go into the review scan results section. And here we've got a scan of a device, and it's a comprehensive scan, so it's quite detailed. You can see there the number of different artifacts that are being captured. It's a very thorough search, running all artifact captures, collecting a lot of data there. And we can see on the right hand side in the statistics column, that took 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And we collected 12,366 files there. If we have a look at another scan result above, where we've run a search profile this time specific to that case. So I showed you earlier that specific K9 search profile. We've got some keywords, hash matches, and also other artifacts that we're searching for. And if we look within the statistics section, we can see that is a considerably quicker scan duration time there of 34 seconds. And we've captured 353 files. So we're now just looking specifically at files that are relevant to our investigation. We can delve into that a bit more if we click into the view section and have a look at those specific results. If I go into the picture section, we can see all of our results where we've got matches that have been tagged, have been pushed right to the top. And if we click on the first one, we can see we've got a keyword hit there against that particular file. If we click on another file, we'll see a match against the hash. We've got a matching hash value there. So we can see that we're looking at data that's specific to our case. So that was just a quick demonstration of search profiles and captures and how they can be utilized in order that we comply with the Landeck ruling. To conclude with, I would like to talk about some of the enhancements that we're going to see in the forthcoming release of ADF Pro version 6.3. So in 6.3, we're going to have that ability to do a targeted data collection where we do the extraction and the acquisition. We can utilize our captures, and then we can delete that acquisition and focus only on the targeted data that we've collected. We've also got going to have the ability to sanitize our preview where we've got matches against hashes. So a really useful tool there, really useful capability within the tool that we're going to have in version 6.3. And this is just showing you the output. So we've run a scan and we can see there we've got matches against hashes, and this material, it will be sanitized. So again, we're thinking about the well-being and welfare of the investigators that are using our tool and ensuring that they've got that capability there to sanitize the results. And again, this is just another view of demonstrating the sanitized preview where you've got hash matches. So to conclude with, what are the key takeaways? The key takeaways are that we can maximize using those search profiles and captures within ADF Pro, and we can build that tailored and flexible framework. We're going for that targeted data collection. So we're being very specific and laser focused, as I said, in what we're gathering and what we're looking at. And that follows on that we're going to be complying with those and mitigating against those concerns around collateral intrusion and privacy. And ultimately, we're going to be complying with the Landeck ruling. So that concludes this presentation. Thank you so much for your time today. I've just left my details on the screen there. If you would like to request a free trial, you can scan that QR code. And we will be presenting at the Digital Investigations Conference in Zurich next week. So if you are out there and you have time, please do come and see us because we'll be running a workshop around this particular scenario. Thank you for your time today. Just have a look at the questions, see what questions we have. So that's a really good question there from Chandra about the Landeck ruling. Does it apply only to EU citizens, regardless of where they are physically, or to anyone in the EU at the time of the investigation? So in this specific instance, it relates to the individual while they were in the EU. So from my understanding of the case, it applies to anyone in the EU at the time of the investigation. Again, another great question about the independent authority must be acquired before accessing data. Is it still legal to have possession of the device while waiting to find that authority? Again, great question from Chandra there. That would depend on the laws local to your country and around criminal investigations. So I'm not entirely sure. But a great question. If we don't have any further questions, I would just like to thank you again all for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all, and please do come and see us. Thank you.